Hey y'all, good afternoon. Lisa Davis here, the Trusted Banker, and I just wanted to get online and talk about some of the findings now that this administration has been in office 35 days, to all the failures and the lies that they've told about all the work that they've gotten done. And, the reason I want to bring this up is because I keep getting into conversations with MAGA followers in my comment sections on all of my social media platforms where they're telling me, but this is being done and that is being done. And we have nice conversations. And the conversation we had last night was about minimum wage, and banks need to be chartered in their states. And they're so glad that Trump is in office, because now banks will have to be chartered by states, and minimum wage will be increased and set across the country, and let states do those settings, set the prices. And I said, banks are already chartered in their states. I work at the bank. I used to work at the bank, and one of the banks I worked for was a state chartered bank. And every single state sets their own minimum wage. I'm in Michigan. It's $12, almost $13 right now for minimum wage, and it'll be $15 next year. But in Alabama, it's $7.25. So what is your minimum wage? The reason I think that this is important is because there's so many misunderstandings, and these people have believed everything that this man has told them about the things that he wants to do, when they don't realize that the things that he told them they wanted to do were things that had already been done. So let's get into some of the fallacies and the failures of DOGE, because Elon is a huge failure. He's always been a failure, and that is why he's so pompous and arrogant now, because he's probably one of those kids nobody liked, and he doesn't know how to him and Trump both have businesses that fail. They're just failures, right? And so they've got all these things that they need to prove to themselves, but whatever. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're fact checking, right? Where he keeps talking about the thing. So USAID, thank God, that whole debacle got blocked, and the grant funding is now all being issued. And it's working. Even though they wanted to dismantle it, it says the U.S. Agency for International Development claimed that USAID spent your tax dollars to fund celebrity trips to Ukraine. That wasn't true, but we also have information that funding has started back up. Let me get the link for that. So that funding has started back up, and it was decided, a court is blocking that decision. So, and we're going to see the common denominator here is that the courts are standing up and blocking a lot of this chaos that this administration is doing right now. And so for me, I think when I offer any kind of efforts to help people relax within this administration, the first 90 days, it looks like it's going to be crazy. We need to relax and see what happens. And if the courts are able to hold them at bay, because a lot of the things they're doing are illegal, or they just make no sense, right? And so the courts are now finally standing up and blocking a lot of the efforts. And so I think that's a good thing. And yeah, we're playing catch up. So misrepresenting a Pentagon contract for defense against cyber attacks. Musk took aim at Reuters news agency and criticized them over its business practices. He criticized them over its coverages of his business practices. Elon has horrible business practices. We know this. So you can't get mad, vindictive, and vengeful when somebody tells you the truth about yourself. You kind of need to take that criticism and adjust. So Reuters was paid. He wrote on X. And the other thing I don't like is how Elon is handling all of this. I deleted that X app, but he's using that as a tool to cause harm and chaos with not telling the truth on X, and reporting things that just because he's in a bad mood or he's mad at somebody. So it says he wrote on X, Reuters was paid millions of dollars by the U.S. government for large-scale social deception. This is literally what it says on the purchase order. They're a total scam. So Musk's comment deceived the public. The contract Musk was talking about was actually awarded by the Defense Department during the first Trump administration to bolster the military's defense against social engineering cyber attacks that use social deception tactics to trick humans. The money went to the data-driven solutions called the Thomson Reuters Special Services, not the Reuters news agency. And this is the problem when you have somebody that doesn't pay attention to detail, is not used to running a successful business, and is very vengeful and emotional about the tactics they use and the decisions they make. my background is in compliance and enterprise risk management. It is imperative that you always read all of the information in all of these documents to make sure that you have a full understanding of what is going on, and not just see the word Reuters and consider that to be the news agency Reuters. So Elon failed there too. Again, casting baseless suspicion upon tax credits under the Trump-Biden administration. Musk shared on X again users chart that purported to show the value of federal tax credits each year from 1990 to 2021. The chart described the tax credits as IRS welfare, depicted as a big jump in 2018, another jump in 2020, and a peak in 2021. Musk suggests there was something inexplicable or nefarious about these recent increases, writing that such a big jump in a short time doesn't make sense. Well, it makes perfect sense. The increases are easy to explain because Trump signed an expansion of the child tax credit in 2017 tax law, causing the increase in 2018, and his 2020 pandemic relief legislation provided various forms of relief to Americans through tax credit, causing the increase that year. And then President Joe Biden approved the short-term expansion of the child tax credit in the pandemic relief law that Trump created and signed early into 2021, causing the increase that year. There's no mystery why the child tax credit increased. And again, during the pandemic, the growth is the direct result of child tax credit expansion signed into law by President Trump, and then expanded, and we kept it with President Biden to increase the credit's maximum value. This is the danger of having somebody going through government documentation, public and private data on people and their personal information. Somebody that's not used to understanding what the documents are talking about, and then somebody that has hired 19-year-olds to 25-year-olds to be in the government's business, the government that runs this country's business, just because he's vengeful and he wants to point out all the failures in the system. Meanwhile, the failures he's pointing out are the failures in his mentality and in his staff to understand how these things work. The next one he did was promoting a false claim about the government spending. He said that the New York Times tens of millions of dollars over just the past years, including $26.9 million from the Department of Health and Human Services and $19 million to the National Science Foundation. But those numbers were not even close. The ex-user who made the post, right-wing commentator Ian Cheong, had done a flawed web search that was not actually limited to federal spending. And the University of Central Arkansas economics professor Jeremy Horpendahl pointed out that Chong's search also brought up federal spending on other entities with New York in the name, such as grants to New York University. So when you limit the search to federal spending on New York, on the New York Times in the last 5 years, you find no time spending at all from the HHS or National Science Foundation. This correct search shows that total federal spending committed to the Times since the beginning of 2020 was about $1.6 million. And the biggest chunk came from the subscriptions for the Department of Defense. It is dangerous to have this man that is incompetent and doesn't understand and cannot comprehend how government works, in government data works, in government budgets, in government period, if he's not understanding what he's looking at. And that was my biggest concern when Trump and Elon got in here, because I remember from the last administration how Trump messed up a lot of programming, and his administrations was just not as impactful as they could have been because he didn't run it that way. And now we've got Elon running amok within the government, and looking at all these things and not understanding it. And government is so intricate. Government oversight, government budgeting, government programming, government implementation, it's all very intricate, which is why there's so many people that might they might need to implement one initiative or one strategy. It is not just one person. And that's the danger of consolidating the government, as this administration is trying to plan. When you try to consolidate a government so that a lot of things fall under either one person or one department, you are taking the risk of knowledge, you're taking the risk of oversight, you're taking the risk of checks and balances, you're taking the risk of just risk period when you want to consolidate it down to maybe one person with all of this power that can manage things versus the checks and balances that come from various different levels of people that work to implement things in the government. So he promoted this one was crazy, and this probably is why I'm doing this, because when I heard last week that they talked about the government had funded $50 million to fund condoms in Gaza. I knew that was false when I heard it, but it gives their base a lot to run on. Oh my God, this is why we don't have money in our community. Oh my God, this is why I'm poor. Oh my God, this is why I can't find a job, because my country not only is sending money to Ukraine, but they're sending millions of dollars to Gaza for them to buy condoms. Okay, this claim was pure nonsense. Musk and the White House never had any evidence to substantiate it. Asked 2 weeks later about the inaccuracy, and see, this is why Musk is dangerous. He made his concession that, yeah, some of the things I'm going to say are going to be incorrect and they should be corrected. And what they know, what Musk really does know, is rage baiting and keeping their base activated. He knows how to do that probably better than anybody else. And as long as he gives them nuggets to chew on, rage to be upset about, big topics of discussion to think that things are being done wrong, by the time somebody proves it inaccurate, it's too late. These MAGA nuts and patriotic boys are already running amok with it, and there's no pulling them back in to say, wait a minute, what you heard was not right. It's too late, and they know that. Musk shared an ex post from conservative activist Charlie Kirk that included a brief video clip of DOGE clock, an animated counter that showed the fast increasing total of more than 1.109 billion that he claims he has found. My question to Musk: if you found $55 billion that you could save, everywhere I read the articles, it says you found, and it's an estimate of how much you have found. When are you going to verify and validate the dollars? When are you going to verify and validate that you actually did find these things? Because until you validate it, it's cool to say this is what we say we found, but validate it. Where's the money, Elon? Because we know how much money you've gotten since you've been in the DOGE office, in the government office, in the White House office. We know you done got $800 billion in contracts for your companies. We know that, contract signed, sealed, and delivered. So where's this money you're finding, and has it gone back to the Treasury? And then if it does go back to the Treasury, and these are Americans' tax dollars, tell me why the option is only to give Americans 20% back of their tax dollars if the tax dollars were being misused. See, that part doesn't make any sense to me, because if your entire premise is I want to get to the government data and dollars so that I can prove to Americans that this government is wasteful with your tax dollars, and I'm going to find your tax dollars so that we can find all the waste. And then when you say you find 55 million or billion of our tax dollars, why are Americans only going to get 20% back instead of all the money? Because if it was wasted, it's not being utilized, and it doesn't have a place anyway, why give it to the Treasury to pay down the Treasury's debt? Americans didn't we didn't create that debt. Y'all did. The government created that debt. So why can't Americans get their money back? If you find 55 billion, send us our money. Don't send me 20% of it. Send me all of it, right? So the Social Security data, basically, and in a nutshell, let's get back to all the lies that Elon's telling, right? He's been blocked. He cannot get into the Social Security Department. The chart didn't prove any fraud. It didn't show that millions of dead people are erroneously being sent Social Security money, right? So Elon is saying that his initial search showed that 130 people, nearly 9 million people aged 130 years of age or older are receiving benefits from the Social Security Department. The chart didn't prove that. It didn't even show that millions of dead people are erroneously being sent Social Security money. Public data from Social Security Administration shows that about 89,000 people aged 99 or over were receiving Social Security benefits since December 2024, not even close to the millions Musk suggested. And that's because of a critical fact Musk didn't explain. And I bet you my bottom dollar, he didn't explain it because he don't understand it. Someone not having their death listed in the Social Security database doesn't mean they are actually getting Social Security money. Social Security already has a system in place to stop payments to people listed as being aged 115 years of age or older. Right? A 2023 report from the Inspector General, who monitors Social Security Administration, found 18.9 million people aged 100 or older who were not marked as deceased on their database entry. But while the Inspector General was critical of the Social Security Administration over this issue, she also found that only 44,000 of these 18.9 million people were receiving payments. 44,000. And this is what I mean when I say the government already had inspector generals in place. Elon fired them. We already had people with doing the checks and balances to make sure that there's not any overspending. This country does have a big deficit, but what Elon's doing is not saving us any money. It's costing us money. It's costing us money. And they're making a false claim about FEMA spending on migrant housing. Musk claimed that the Federal Emergency Management Agency had the previous week sent $59 million to luxury New York City hotels to house illegal migrants. I remember that. I remember when that came out because MAGA nuts went crazy. Why are we putting up immigrants in hotels? That money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels for illegals. This is how he rage baits his base. And he must continue to rage bait. So I would say Elon was brought in because of Twitter, that he has this social media platform. His job is really to keep these people, MAGA nuts, incensed, infuriated, and upset this entire administration and keep their fire raging. He has to rage them in order for them to continue to support what they believe Trump is doing. But when you talk to them and you have a conversation with them, they can't prove any facts that they say. And when you let them know that a lot of stuff Trump is saying that he did has already been done, is already in existence, they have no words for that. So the money was never meant for American disaster relief, was never meant for American disaster relief. The cash came from a separate federal initiative, the Shelter and Services Program, in which Congress gave money to FEMA for the specific purpose of helping state and local governments and nonprofits house migrants. Congress appropriated $650 million for this program. It appropriated a much larger sum, more than $35 billion, for FEMA disaster relief in that fiscal year. These are just two different, distinct pots of money, as fact checkers repeatedly noted when Trump and others made similar claims in the fall. The money was not housing immigrants. I have another article here I wanted to share. Let me find it. And this was about, so I really want to use this as a way to help people feel a little bit better. I have contracts with HUD. I have contracts with HUD, right? My contract has not been eliminated. I have not been fired. I have not been removed from my contract work, and the entire department that I work with is still there. So we also have to be careful about the media we consume and try to make sure that what we're reading and seeing is also the actual truth. So I wanted to say that too, because somebody just asked me, how are you doing with your contracts and stuff? I'm fine. The only time it affected us is when Trump got in there and immediately froze funds. And it didn't affect me. It just threw that was the rude awakening, right? That was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? What is with this administration? But by 5 o'clock that night, their funds were open again. And honestly, since Trump did what he did, I get paid so much quicker now. When I submit my invoice, I get paid immediately. So Trump kind of helped me out where I was waiting 2 to 3 weeks. Now it's like same week. So I'm cool with it. I don't know. I just don't understand why they have to do this. They have to do this for their base. What was the other one that I wanted to talk about? This one, the money that they say that they found. DOGE says that he saved $50 billion for taxpayers. Josh Sewell, Director of Research and Policy at Taxpayers for Common Sense, told NBC Wednesday that it was mathematically impossible for DOGE to reach that kind of $1 trillion saving Musk has pledged without targeting defense spending and entitlements. So he's claimed that he found 4 point something trillion dollars. Now he's saying he found $55 billion. Trump said he found $50 billion. If you have inconsistencies between the president of the United States and his consultant and the people that watch over these things that are just basically watching it, you as a banker, we can't have inconsistencies. So how is this government having all these inconsistencies? It is because Elon does not pay attention to detail. Elon does not comprehend these things, and Elon is not able to do what he says he's trying to do. This has been the biggest failure I've ever seen in my life. It's been the biggest failure, and we're just gonna have to just push through it while he does what he does. But there's one more I wanted to share. Federal spending the DEI thing. Yeah, the DEI thing is not true. Like everybody did not dismantle DEI. Let me explain what I feel like. Let me explain my premise on how DEI and these companies are working, right? And I do believe that some companies wanted to not have to do it, right? And that's fine. I also know that some companies are renaming it to some companies are still using inclusion without diversity and equity. Some companies are calling it belonging. Some companies are just renaming it. And that's the whole thing. That's the thing with these kind of initiatives as well. Because there's always workarounds. If you've ever worked in corporate, you know we always figure out a workaround. So you don't want me to call it DEI? You don't want me to define it like that? Okay, I will call it something else. Let me call it just inclusion and let me redefine it. And I will continue on with my programming. Because no matter what, a lot of companies and their shareholders and their investors have found that having a diverse work group is profitable for their company. So if a person comes down that has had 6 bankruptcies, I'm talking about Trump, and multiple failed businesses to tell me how I need to run my business and how I need to start hiring people or making programs and initiatives, and I know that your track record is in the toilet, why would I listen to you? And if I'm a smart investor, why would I listen to you? And why would I go to my advisory board meeting or the corporate board meeting and tell the CEO, you need to listen to that man that's had 6 bankruptcies, 34 felonies, multiple failed businesses, all these lawsuits, a university that it didn't educate anybody. The list goes on and on. He's not a strong businessman. His comprehension level is low. So I believe that this gave an out to the companies that wanted to get out. And it's cool. If you don't want to participate, just don't participate. Don't nobody want to be around nobody that don't believe in diverse situations. I know I don't. So it's cool. I don't care if you want to hold on to it or not. I don't believe that finds you any available, funding and things. But I don't care if people, as a Black person, we don't go where we're not wanted. We really don't give a damn if you want to have diversity or not. The people that wanted to keep it, like Delta, like Costco, like Apple, like Elf, like Meijer, like Procter & Gamble, like Sephora, the list goes on and on. These companies are keeping it. And they're perfectly fine with me because I can grocery shop, I can travel, I can get my bulk items, I can get my beauty items. I'm good. Procter & Gamble got everything else I need. Paper towels, toilet paper. I think they do. Procter & Gamble is so huge. Everything else I need is there. Cleaning supplies, everything. So I don't care what companies got rid of DEI. I never shopped at Target anyways. I was never a Target girly, and I don't shop at Walmart. So I think that these things are all for show. I think it's all rage baiting. I think it's all bullying tactics to enrage and keep their base that are bullies engaged with them, because their base does not like normalcy, which means I'm running a government efficiently. So that means I don't have time to get on X. I don't have time to always be at a news conference. I don't have time to be showboating because I'm doing my job, right? His base needs all of these public admonishments and all these public admissions out loud and all these things, showboating, right? His base has to have that. If they don't have it, they believe he's not doing anything. So I believe in my mind that we're just going to have to deal with his showboating and him being in the press every single day. But I say check the judges that are holding the case, handling the cases. Look at all of the blockages that they've had. The CFPB has not been dismantled. Okay, that is false. And the workers have sued, and the workers are going to be going back to work. The people that just got fired last week are coming back to work. Another judge blocked that in order that they bring the people back to work. I got to find the articles. The funding that they stopped has been open and and the funding is going. What else are people worried about? He didn't get into the IRS database, and he didn't get into, who else was he trying to get into? So it's like we just need to just keep watching it. I will continue to do updates. Oh, the regulatory agencies for all the banks have not been merged. They're not all up under one umbrella. They're all still individual. What Trump does, if he doesn't get his way to do these things, is he just stops giving them work, right? He just, like they did at the CFPB, and they said, they're still getting paid, but they can't do any more work. They're not doing investigations. They're not following up on claims that people are making and blah, blah, blah. And that weakens the productivity of the organization, but it's not necessarily dismantling it or shutting it down. And as soon as Biden got back in office this last time, everything else picked back up, and it was business as usual, and it was a lot of work to do. The other thing that I found was another article about the deregulation of the banks. We learned from the last time Trump was in office, all the bank failures we've had since the last time he was in office is because he deregulated the banks then. And he lowered the requirements for stress testing then. And the next thing you know, as soon as he left office, we had Silicon Valley Bank fail. We had, I can't remember if it was Citizens Bank or Republic Bank. I can't remember, but we had bank failures after he left office, right? There's no bank failures right now, because they stabilized that industry. With the deregulating that's going on right now and the lack of regulation that these banks are pushing for, Trump's not doing it for no reason. Banks are pushing for it because they want to be a little bit more flexible and innovative with the monies that are in the banks, which is the public's money. We're going to see more bank failures in the future. That's all. We're just going to see more bank failures in the future with the deregulating. So that happens, but that's something that always happens. So, but with the deregulating, yeah, it's going to get a little bit worse. So that's all I got for today. I wanted to just give a quick update and the hot topics and things like that. I am still following all these things. It's been a fabulous Black History Month. Celebrations have been on. I have been enjoying myself. I have been speaking at many different places, so I've been busy. I haven't been online that much, but I'll be back as soon as all this is over. My name is Lisa Davis. I am the Trusted Banker, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.